Does that get us closer for you, or is it still not quite enough?
I mean, that certainly would give us a much better opportunity to try and fit into that window. But I do know today our large runs overnight, they start at 6 p.m. and they're finishing at 4 a.m. We've got a pretty long run time today. We have a pretty complex supply chain and logistics system that are all intertwined. It's a pretty long window overnight that we're processing. I mean, yeah, certainly, obviously, adding more time gives us a better chance to fit into that. But we've been fighting that long run probably for 15 years. The business adds something into it, and the model starts running long, and then we've got to go figure out a way to optimize something someplace to bring it back down, and that's been a constant struggle for probably close to 15 years. So, try and get it from a 10-hour window down to a 6 or 8 is really going to be a challenge for us, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, as you're trading this off, I mean, just understanding that you're probably not going to get this runtime in there. Generally speaking, as you're thinking about this concept, which of these is a stronger argument for you? Kind of widening that window or deepening the discount?
I think for us, widening the window would be more appealing than a larger discount.
Okay. And why is that?
Just knowing the complexity of our environment and the number of systems, interfaces, jobs, cloud providers we have to touch to try and shrink that window will not be a trivial task by any means, or by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, I don't think we're talking days of work. We're probably talking months of work.
Mm-hmm. So, this whole time that we've been talking about this, we've kind of been talking about this in terms of the batch processing, this kind of long-run model that you have. Are we limiting ourselves? I mean, are there other workloads that lend themselves to this kind of off-peak compute that might work? I just want to make sure we didn't paint ourselves into a corner with kind of the one scenario.
Sure. No, that's a good question. I think for us, probably not. Most of the things we are putting in Azure is for our corporate/office workforce. So they're predominantly going to be using it, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. at night, Central Standard Time, in that time frame. We don't really have groups of people outside of the manufacturing processes that are working, off hours, or that we could shift off hours probably even to do some of that. So yeah, my feel is that the majority of the stuff we'd be looking at would be in the batch processing type of world, report generation, statistical analysis, those types of logistics models, things like that are running at night and off hours today.
Mm-hmm. And those things that are running at night and off hours today, are those currently running in Azure, or are those running?
I would say probably 90% of them still are on-prem, but we're going to be moving a significant portion of that between now and the end of the year there. So, that'll probably be an 80-20 or a 70-30, somewhere in that range by the end of this calendar year.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So are those the same kind of things that are running the 10, 12 hours, or are these smaller chunks that we might be able to shift over and get this kind of discounted compute for?
Yeah, there's smaller chunks within that large run, if you will.
It's all part of the same thing?
Yeah, it's all kind of part of the same thing, right? So some of those things run on the mainframe, some run on Solaris, some run on AIX. A good portion of those run on Red Hat or Windows. So yeah, certainly with some of those, I would think we'd have to look to see on what time does this normally run every day. And, is it a good candidate to try and somehow shift into that window? Could we go to the orchestration and say, hey, if it's ready to run at 9:30, pause it until 10 so that we could spin the image up first and then run it? We'd have to look at some of those types of things and see what kind of impact that would have. But there's certainly, the opportunity or possibility.
Okay. Yeah, and don't let me sell you on